Has Jeff Nippard completely ruined his name and reputation, and is he wrong about his take on the natural limit and these two gentlemen who both claim to be natural?
How to look like you're on steroids.
There really was a strong pushback against the information from his first video.
That's exactly what this is. This is science-based gaslighting.
All of these people are actually natural.
That's crazy.
Well, let's find out. So about a month ago, Jeff posted this video going over how you can look like you're on steroids while being natural. And yes, he did in fact drug test these guys and claimed that they were most likely natural, sparking a ton of controversy. So much so that Jeff had to make a response video going over the whole situation, where he basically covers the natural ceiling by examples of pre-steroid physiques, the FFMI scale, and science-backed information on how muscular you can be as a natural athlete. Now, the video is great. It covers a lot of what we already know, that there is a lot of variation in the lifting scene. Some people, even naturally, can reach an FFMI, which is just your fat-free mass divided by your height squared, over 25. For reference, Jeff himself has a fat-free mass index of 24.4, a very respectable number, which puts him at the upper spectrum of natural athletes. And we've had athletes before, specifically bodybuilders and American football players, who have breached that 25 FFMI mark while being natural. So in theory, the natural limit is very high, and a certain amount of people, given that they train and eat correctly for years and have the right genetics for it, will be able to breach into an FFMI over 25 and look absolutely jacked, like these guys from the early to mid 1900s. However, Hussein Farhat, the biggest topic in the Natty or Not universe right now, and this kid, Julian Fitzgerald, have an FFMI of 22.8 and 25 respectively, meaning that their physiques are within this so-called natural limit, and no matter how much you disagree with that, we do have research to prove that you can get this level of muscularity and physique naturally. The issue here though, which Jeff also mentioned, is the time frame of which both of these guys made their gains, with Hussein supposedly gaining 50 or 60 pounds of lean mass in just 3 years, though in reality it was more like 18 months, and Julian gaining all of his muscle before even turning 19, which is crazy. Jeff again tested both of these guys and found that their blood markers were all indeed within natural levels. But does this mean that they're natural? No! But it does mean that their blood markers were natural at the time, and if there's anything we've learned about sports and the documentary Icarus, is that athletes are able to regularly pass drug tests even while taking PEDs. And this means that Julian and Hussein could have taken stuff in the past and then just cycled off. Now, random drug testing would still have to suffer from a lot of these issues, so if you have built a physique on PEDs in the past and you're still within the natural limit, you might be able to maintain your muscle and leanness for a long period of time without regressing. But yeah, of course, you would expect Jeff to know everything about the science behind these things, and I cannot find anything to critique him on there. He provides a few studies, historical landmarks, and comparisons, which are all very fair. And even the statistical likeliness that genetic freaks like Hussein and Julian exist are fair arguments which can suggest they are natural. Like the study which compared bicep growth showed that people could gain on average 20% more size, whereas some people gained over 50%, while others didn't gain anything at all and even regressed.
Most people grew their biceps by about 20%, but there were a few unlucky subjects who didn't gain any muscle at all. And there were a few really lucky subjects who gained 40, 50, even 55% bicep size while running the exact same program as everyone over here.
In the real world, this would be very unfair for those who stay the same and see somebody else gain 50% of size. And if it wasn't in a clinical setting, but rather on something like Instagram or Reddit, people would be screaming steroids, even if that wasn't the case. It's just that they adapted more based on their genetics and how well suited the program was for them. However, Jeff did have a secondary part of this video calling it common sense, where he goes over rational thoughts and conclude that we cannot prove that either of these guys are natural, but there is still a possibility that they could be. But I noticed one thing that Jeff didn't mention in that video at all, and that is incentive. You see, like the top comment of the video mentions, many don't really care if somebody is natural or not. What they care about is whether or not they are honest. That is basically what the Natty or Not crisis is. Sam Sulek is on PEDs and open about it, so is Noel Deisel, Chris Bumstead, Mike Israetel, Greg Doucette, tons of guys who are all doing well in the industry. So the steroids themselves aren't what causes somebody to be unlikable or determines whether or not they have a good brand or success. Though it does play a role in how somebody looks, which drives attention to their brand. The prime difference here is that open PED users can be less relatable, and natural lifters don't necessarily like taking their advice because of that. And therefore, they would rather seek natural content creators because because they believe their content applies more to them, like how many would rather watch something from Jeff Nippard than Mike Israetel about training. And if you look great as a natural and then market yourself as natural, you reach a ton of people in and outside of the gym who believe that they can get a physique like yours. And therefore, they're more inclined to believe what you say. They're more likely to follow you, and most importantly, buy stuff from you. That includes training plans, supplements, even full-on coaching, which is fairly expensive service that you should have an underlying education to practice, and your physique drives up your credibility on those things. Now, we see this a lot in the science-based lifting community, where guys who have only trained for 2 or 3 years who still give solid advice will get shunned because they don't have that insane physique yet, whereas somebody with a great physique is perceived as more knowledgeable. Now, you can say what you want, but in the fitness and gym industry, how you look is literally the biggest credential. And with PEDs, even small amounts of testosterone, the change you can make in your physique is tremendous. The fake natural issue is that they are making money off of a lie. And with today's social media world, where you can quite literally access most of the world through platforms like TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, you could technically sell a lie to nearly everyone with funds and access to the internet. So even if physiques like Hussein and Julian are within the natural limits from a theoretical perspective, the incentive for them to take PEDs to build a solid physique, like they have to sell supplements, coaching, or just their content, is massive. And it has worked for so many other influencers in the past, like how the Liver King sold his own supplement line, or how Mike O'Hearn sells duck eggs. Sure, these are extreme examples, but what about the guys who are near that natural ceiling that you cannot really prove or disprove the legitimacy of? The issue people have with fake naturals is that they sell a dream to people, usually with their only credential being their physique. And that physique wasn't built using what they sell, so it's basically false advertising. Now, Jeff didn't mention any of this stuff, probably because it can't be quantified, it can't be used as scientific, but there is a big incentive to take PEDs and then lie about it if 1, you can make a lot of money doing so, 2, you can get famous from it, and 3, if it's really difficult to disprove. Jeff did the best that he could without speculation, which was to blood test these guys, but in order to actually be effective, they should be tracked in the gym for months, getting tests done weekly. And unfortunately, that isn't realistic to just prove that somebody takes or doesn't take PEDs. And nobody would agree to it for the reason that it's just too much hassle. Now, I don't think Jeff necessarily lost any credibility on this one, but I would expect an even more nuanced take from him, especially considering he definitely knows that single-time drug tests can be bypassed. And as he mentioned himself, the FFMI crossover is fairly large, where natural lifters can perform those taking steroids and vice versa, especially in that 22 to 25 range, where you can't really tell the difference between somebody who takes steroids and somebody who doesn't. And it's not like either of these guys, especially Julian, have done everything right in their approach to training and nutrition. And it does feel a bit wrong that Jeff is defending a kid who trains poorly, eats poorly, and somehow got a much better physique than he does within just 3 years of lifting.
I do eat a lot of like protein and stuff like that. Like same thing everybody else eats. Like I go to Wendy's sometimes, you know what I mean? Nothing crazy.
Are you planning to stay natural, or have you thought about that?
As of right now, I'm just focused on, getting through school.
I think it's fair to say that I don't think either of these guys are lifetime naturals, but that is just my opinion. I have no scientific proof to back this claim up, and that is part of the problem. They might be natural, and if you're a man of statistics, you can't guarantee one outcome over the other, because people who go viral in the bodybuilding and fitness industry also tend to be genetic anomalies if they live mostly off of their physique. Jeff doesn't present that they're natural, but he does say that based on the testing and the scientific literature, they could be, even though it goes back to what I said earlier. People care more about whether or not you're honest than whether or not you are natural. But it's nearly impossible without a doubt to prove that either of these guys are lying or telling the truth. Of course, you can assume based on the most likely scenario, but you cannot know for sure. It's not like math where 2 + 2 always equals 4, or on Greg Doucette's channel where he always promotes Turk. But if you took a huge population of people, very few, if any, depending on your sample size, would build as much muscle as these two guys within that short time frame. Jeff is getting a lot more heat from this second video though, because it seems that he's willing to die on that hill of these guys being natural, even if the proof of them being natural isn't really strong.
Depressing. I'm not sure to be like, if I should be motivated or just sad.
It's just that the FFMI is within natural reason, and they haven't failed any blood tests. It's not impossible for them to be natural, it's just very, very improbable, which is what most of us are saying. But I do get the feeling that Jeff wants us to believe that they're natural for whatever reason, and I can't get behind that reason. I think you could get the point across that the natural ceiling is much higher than most people think without using a 19-year-old who already maxes out the FFMI. And it kind of feels like he's trying to downplay their results here.
I know he looks a lot leaner on the right, but there's some serious angle, lighting, and photo filter tricks going on there, so it's honestly not a good comparison.
Even if Jeff himself believed that these guys are natural, I don't think it's fair to proclaim that to his audience when he is normally very biased on scientific literature, while the whole natty or not situation is mere speculation in comparison. Now, if you want to watch the full video of Jeff's rebuttal, I will link it down below in my description, and you can make your own mind up based on what you think. Though mine is pretty clear on the natty or not situation. I've probably made too many videos about it at this point, but I still like to provide my opinion and try to see these things from an outside perspective. Let me know down below whether or not you believe these guys are natural, and if you believe Jeff has lost any credibility after covering this controversy. I still think Jeff is a lifetime natural, but I do see a lot of people in the comments who think otherwise, so let me know your opinion.
Everything you just saw in the last video with Greg was a joke.
Okay, I've already finished making this video. I did the voiceover like a week ago. This came out yesterday, and I am so disappointed in both Greg and Hussein for doing this. Okay, so first they made a video saying that Hussein actually took a cycle the whole time and hinted towards it beforehand, causing Jeff to make this post apologizing to his followers. Then published a video which ended by saying, "Oh, no, we're just kidding, it's all a gimmick, Hussein wasn't actually on a cycle at all." I sincerely think this is the dumbest marketing stunt to sell supplements that there's ever been in the fitness industry. That is a shitty way to lie to your audience and customers to sell a supplement which doesn't even have any good research behind it. That is quite literally lying to sell supplements and to gain attention. So I'll just leave it at that. Be critical of people in the industry. Even if something can theoretically be possible, that doesn't mean that it is.